And I said I would pay for it. Okay, so if I ain't get it today, ain't nobody asked for it. So I'm getting it once after tomorrow. Whatever name.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Volunteer West Virginia Wednesday. We're so happy you all are here. We're going to get started in about 1 minute, but in the meantime, we have a really fun chat box question for you all. So if you look on your screen, you're going to share what organization are you with and what is one thing you love about your volunteers. So we wanted to build up some positive energy around our volunteers today for today's session. So go ahead and tell us what you love, and then we'll get started in just a moment.
You don't talk to nobody. I'm not trying to be mean when I say that, but no. I didn't mean it like that, but you know what I mean. Like something I would say.
All right, welcome everyone. If you just started, we're introducing ourselves in the chat box, and we're sharing one thing that we love about our volunteers. Oh, hey, Alexander, it's good to see you again. And he is with the World Scouting Museum here in Charleston, and he loves their enthusiasm. And then shout out to Kathy from Morgantown Area Meals on Wheels. It's good to see you again. And then Melissa, she shared she's with the town of Thurman, that they're always positive. So that's something I love about volunteers. They'll always be positive and lift you up. Who else do we have? Friends of Wetzel County is my organization. Hi, Alexandria. I'm from Wetzel County too. And she loves how dedicated their volunteers are to their community. So I think it's really cool to see where you all are at in this part of the state. We have groups from Greenbrier County all the way up to Wetzel County. So it's neat to see who's here today. And then, hey, Dick, he's with the Community Health Improvement Association, and he loves their passion. So that's a good way to start today's webinar. So I think even though we're all from different parts of the state, we have similar themes about our volunteers and what we love about them, whether it is their passion or their dedication and enthusiasm. And here at Volunteer West Virginia, we like to say volunteers are love in motion, and they create ripples of love and care throughout our state. So I just really like to take a moment to appreciate them and share one thing that we love about these amazing groups of people that are volunteering their time to serve their community. So if you haven't gotten a chance to introduce yourself, you can go ahead and do it in the chat box. But in the meantime, my name's Dana Bryant. I'm an outreach officer here at Volunteer West Virginia, and I'm going to be hosting today's webinar along with some special guests. And I'm joined by Blake Hatcher. She's our program coordinator, and she's going to be checking the chat box. If you have any questions, she'll keep an eye on that, and she'll let you in and out of the waiting room. So if you need to leave today or you get kicked off your internet, know that we'll let you in today's webinar. And also I wanted to share that everything that we're going over today is being recorded, and I'm going to send out a copy of the recording after today's webinar. So no need to take notes. We'll mail that out as soon as we're done today. So we're winding down our 2025 webinar series. I can't believe this year has already flown by, but if this is your first time attending a Volunteer West Virginia Wednesday, welcome. And the main goal of this series is an opportunity for us to provide free training to nonprofits and volunteer programs across the state, where we explain what we do at Volunteer West Virginia, we network, we provide trainings, and most of all, we have fun. So this is going to be a relaxed use of your hours, so you can go ahead, kick back and relax, and get ready to hear some really great expert tips from volunteer coordinators from across the state. We have some great upcoming topics throughout the year. If you haven't signed up yet, you're not going to want to miss these. So we have National Preparedness Month coming up in September, and we're going to be hosting a Get Ready West Virginia National Preparedness Month webinar. And during this webinar, we're going to share some general preparedness tips, and we're also going to be jumping into financial preparedness. So if that's something that catches your ear, be sure to sign up for that. That'll be great for individuals in your agency or anyone that you work with that wants to get prepared for an emergency or a disaster. And then in October, I bet you all will love this. This is one of our most popular topics. We're going to be talking about creative volunteer recruitment for nonprofits. And we're going to have a special guest, Katie from the Social Bee in Fairmont, will be sharing those tips with us. So sign up for that because I know recruitment is always a big question, and we're always looking for ways to find new volunteers. So you're not going to want to miss that. In November, we're going to be talking about from local to federal, transitioning from foundation grants to federal funding. And this is going to be hosted from Nikki at the Grant Advantage. And I know there's been a lot of changes on the federal funding scene, and Nikki has her finger on the pulse. So if you have federal grants currently, or you're looking to expand into federal grants, you're going to want to sign up for this because Nikki will have a wealth of experience and knowledge in this topic. And then lastly, in December, we're going to be winding out our year together with self-care for sustained leadership. So if you're a leader at your nonprofit or you have volunteers that serve in leadership roles, this would be a really great training for them. So here is our whole schedule for the rest of the year, and then we'll do it all over again next year. So I'm really happy to have some special guests today. We are going to be learning expert advice for volunteer coordinators. And we are blessed to have two wonderful volunteer coordinators from across the state. We're going to hear from Riley Carpenter. She is up in Wheeling, and she helps to manage volunteer Wheeling through Wheeling Heritage. And then we're also going to hear from Jenny Keener from Heart and Hand Outreach Ministries in South Charleston. She runs a fabulous volunteer program. And then we're going to round out our hour with a little bit of a group knowledge sharing because you all are experts too. So for the last part of our webinar, we're just going to chat informally, and you can volunteer to share a tip that's worked really great at your nonprofit. So without further ado, I'm really happy to introduce Riley Carpenter, who's joining us from Volunteer Wheeling. Welcome, Riley.
Hi, Dana. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I was kind of reading through the chat, seeing where everybody's from. It's nice to have a nice, blending of people from all over the state. And I'm excited to share about what we're up to here in Wheeling.
All right.
So I came into this role. I'm actually the director of programming for Wheeling Heritage, which is a nonprofit that focuses on 4 key pieces in our community, which include arts and culture, small business development. We also do grants and investments. And then the 4th one is historic preservation. So through all of that, I do some programming, but one specific piece of kind of the culture of Wheeling is this volunteer Wheeling piece. So our organization kind of heads this up. So under my role, I get to head this up too, which is really such an honor because I came into it with an educational background. I taught kindergarten for nearly 10 years, and I was ready for a little bit of a change. And this was really, honestly, the perfect opportunity for me to blend my educational background with my love of people and also with youth. That's kind of one of the things I put in the chat was blending generations together to try to really, help our community as much as possible. So I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the things that we do with our program and what I have found that's been working for this last about 8 months. The initial part of the job, I was on maternity leave. They hired me at 8 months pregnant. Thank goodness for that. So I really hit the ground running when I came back from maternity leave. So I'll go ahead and let Dana flip to the next one for us. So a little bit about who we are as Volunteer Wheeling. I'm going to try really hard not to read everything to you. You can obviously glance over here and take a look for yourself. But like I said, we are under the umbrella of Wheeling Heritage, and we work with different community partners to kind of accomplish different things throughout the community. We are a West Virginia Main Street community as well. So I think we try to be really cognizant of that when we're doing some of our programming through volunteer work, because Wheeling is, if you've never been up this way, it has a pretty strong hub of like a downtown community. And then there's lots of little communities surrounding. So I wish our organization was big enough to reach every single group niche of Wheeling, but right now we're trying to keep things as close to home as we can. And that's kind of where we reside, is in the downtown area. So we have 4 teams, and this structuring kind of came about through some of our looking at the West Virginia Main Street community programming to kind of determine what we wanted those four areas to be. So you'll see four lovely faces there. One of them is mine. But we also have three other amazingly strong, what we call committee leads. We have our friend Ellen, who runs the Artisan Center Green team. We have our friend Sandy, who does Beautify Wheeling. And then we have Jean with Re-Energize Wheeling Home Projects. And then you see myself there for community involvement. So I'll kind of break down those four teams over the next couple slides with you so you can hear a little bit about what each one of them is and what they do. All right, so the Artisan Center Green Team. I love the title. I did come up with it like in the middle of the night. But my building where we work is called the Artisan Center. And we have been undergoing for the last almost 2 years now an overhaul on our streetscape. So we have a main street, cross streets, and a market street. And they're both pretty long. I'm not actually sure how many blocks are included within that. I'm going to guess and say maybe 14. But it's a pretty big span that's being completely redone. The streets, we have new bioswales, planters, the street itself, the curbs, it's everything, the drain system. And it's really quite beautiful. It's supposed to be done by October. So it's like very close to being finished. But with that, we were just like, what can we do to kind of brighten up our little corner right outside of our building? There's a lot of commercial property down here and organizations that are housed in different buildings that are shared. But we're lucky enough that we are the managers of our building. We have some tenants that are included with us, but the city owns Artisan Center and then we manage it. So we said, okay, we have these beautiful outdoor planters. We do have a restaurant that now has outdoor dining. So it's kind of adjacent to where this little picture, you can kind of see one of the planters there. But we said, let's go ahead and like liven up this space a little bit. So we, under Ellen, because she's the committee lead, helped get a list of volunteers who were interested specifically in doing this project and ongoing maintenance as well. Because I think one of the challenges we were facing before I came on was that we had this very large pool of volunteers. People said they wanted to help, but there wasn't really a specific responsibility for some of those individuals. So they just kind of felt like they were being pulled in different directions for different projects and maybe even some overwhelm at times. Because you know how we are as volunteers, we want to do as much as we can, but also that can lead to a little bit of burnout. So I think the restructuring of having like a specific person and then groups of people under them made them feel like this is my responsibility. And if I want to help out in a different way or under one of these different umbrellas, I certainly can. But this is kind of like my home. So we have monthly maintenance days. So once per month, starting in April, we launched it in April with kind of the initial planting and the large amount of work that kind of needed done to get this started. And then from there, each month we have set out on the calendar one day where everyone kind of comes together, does some weeding. We also have, which are not pictured here, you can kind of see them. There's something called a bioswale, which is built into the curb. And it is about 3 feet wide and up between 18 to 36 inches deep. And the city provided grasses and mulch and landscaping within those, but they do get pretty weedy. So one of the jobs of the green team is not only to have green thumbs, but we're trying to be eco-friendly and either rehousing some of those weeds to the garbage, or if there's some grasses that become overgrown, we're looking for other places in the community to where can we kind of propagate them and carry them off to be in a better place, whether it be pocket parks or closer to the waterfront or things like that. So we do have 3 core team members that kind of live underneath Ellen. They're like her special helpers. And then we have about 6 or 8 other people who kind of take turns coming for a weekly watering schedule that we set up, which has been really beneficial because I know, as much as Ellen would like to do everything herself, she needs help. So each day of the week from Monday to Friday has a different team member listed. And if it's not raining that day, which I know Dana and Jenny and I were talking before we started, we haven't had rain in a little while. So the watering's been a little heavy, but every day they come down, we have a hose hookup to water all of those and keep them really nice and beautiful looking, not only for people who are doing outdoor dining at the restaurant, but just the appeal of Wheeling, because we're right on one of the corners here on Main Street. And multiple organizations kind of surrounding us have seen the work that we've been doing, and they want to try to like make their block look a little nicer or clean up a little bit, or maybe, talking about some outdoor planters that maybe they could put in. So I think we're kind of setting an example as well, because I mean, we'd love to do every single block from the top to the bottom, but we're only a group of, the green team's about 10 people. So this is something that's doable. And because of the limited range of just keeping it here, I think we've been able to be pretty successful throughout the summer. And then we're hoping, when things kind of cool off a little bit, we can kind of liven up those with a little less summery flower, maybe put some pumpkins in there or some mums, and kind of keep it seasonally appropriate as well. Feel free to chat out if you have a specific question as we go through as well, or drop it in the chat for Blake to let us know. So the second group we have here is the Beautify Wheeling. And this one is one that I think was the strongest moving into this position. They had a really strong handle on a group of wonderful women and a man. I can't leave the men out of it. We have a lot of women that help, but we do have some men too. They were amazing. We joke and say they're the litter legends, because you'll find Sandy and her crew anywhere in Wheeling on any given weekday or a weekend, with their trash grabbers, with their bags, with their vests, and they're just doing the work. So one of the specific things that I wanted to make sure we made happen was we wanted them to start recording what they were able to pick up, because Sandy would say, "Oh yeah, I did something. I did some bags last week. I did." So we partnered up with the Ohio County Solid Waste Authority, and they're another local organization that does a lot with our, I guess you could say, trash, recycling, all of that kind of thing. So we've partnered with them, and they are actually able to pick up our bags. So instead of Sandy trying to put them in the back of her little station wagon, she gives a call over to them, lets them know like where she's headed or where the team is heading and when they think they'll be done. And so someone's able to meet her out there, collect the trash bags, and then they're counting them for her as well in like a little spreadsheet. So we're able to kind of see, quantitatively what we're able to accomplish as this team. And this is a citywide project. So unlike the green team, they're just based here in this downtown area on our corner. Beautify Wheeling goes as far as Elm Grove. They go up to Bethlehem. They do some stuff downtown, obviously. Woodsdale, they're all over the place. And I think we've struggled a tiny bit with just making sure that we were able to get the word out, because if you put it out too far in advance, sometimes people kind of forget about it. Even though we do have some, great people who mark their calendars, a lot of, especially I think younger people, it's a little bit harder to have them say committed to a certain date, unless they're with an organization. So something that I have on here is that the Litter Legends is this like casual group text that Sandy will send out a text message and just say like, "Hey, don't forget tomorrow, 6 p.m., we're meeting here." And that has really seemed to work for the more like impromptu type of things. But we do try to make sure that we have it pretty clear on our volunteer wheeling calendar, which is on our website, that we keep everything on there pretty well in advance, just so everybody knows what's going on. But we do, and Sandy's done a great job pairing up with other local organizations like youth groups, like the Scouts, to get them involved, some of the universities when they were in session, to kind of join her for certain cleanup dates. So that's been really great too. And we can't wait for school to be back in session so that we can engage some of those young people as well. The third one here was a new one, and it was brought up by our executive director here at Wheeling Heritage. There's something slightly similar in the Pittsburgh area, and this is specifically for home projects. Now, when we first had this discussion and brought in some key components and some key people, It was a little misconstrued that we were going to be putting a new roof on someone's house. And we were like, no, not quite. We wish we could attain that kind of thing, but it just wasn't going to be doable with everything else we have going on. So Jean heads this up. Jean Finstein is the president of Friends of Wheeling, which is a local historic preservation, I guess you could say, organization. So she is the best person for this because she's able to help identify people who need the services of these smaller projects. So for home project, we kind of keep it under like small scale. So like small repairs, yard work, even as far as like there's one woman specifically who needed like fire, what are they called? Not fire alarms, but smoke detectors, needed batteries changed out of those, but she didn't have anybody to do it. So like even little things like that, even though it's not really a project, it's still a task that she needed help with. So our goal is to do 2 to 4 a year. We've completed 2. So we're kind of on I feel like a good path. And hopefully this fall we can have 2 others. There's one that needs some steps repaired on their front porch. They're not like completely dilapidated, but they do need probably more of a carpentry background. So Jean, myself, and the 3 other team members that we kind of have under this aren't necessarily carpenters. So we're actually looking at working with OVCEC, which is the trades council that oversees some of the union workers and laborers, to kind of get some guys to help us out with that project. But it's been really great to just be able to help people. You guys all know this, but like be able to help somebody who truly needs it. And it's just a really feel good thing. We're still working on some of the logistics, as I put on here, and budget and timing, because we don't have a budget for this. We do collect donations for volunteer wheeling, but we have so many other things going on as an organization for Wheeling Heritage, where we have an annual appeal and we're collecting, monetary donations to help with all of the other things that we do. Sometimes we struggle a little bit with kind of separating the two, volunteer wheeling and Wheeling Heritage. And a lot of times I think people see us as one, which is great because we do catch a lot of people that way. And are able to get the word out a lot, especially with social media, but that budget is kind of non-existent. So we rely a lot on in-kind donations. The last team is the community involvement, and that is my team. So this works really great because a lot of the programs we do with Wheeling Heritage are community-based, whether it be events or smaller type of engagements. We love to work with students. That's one of the biggest things I said in the beginning that I brought forth was let's engage these young people, people who live here, who've grown up here, who see it being their home in the long run, but also students who are not from here. So we have 2 local universities that are pretty close by. And we, this past spring, really loved getting them kind of like hands dirty, like let's get started, let's get some things accomplished. And it made them feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was here. So this picture here, we do a Fido Fest every spring, which is kind of like a dog-centric outdoor party. It's really fun, but we make these public art pieces from a fundraiser for, it's kind of like a paint and sip, but it's a paint your pup. And so we had university students help us hang them at our dog parks. We have 3 dog parks, and so this is kind of like the public art piece. And the guys they were some rugby and some tennis players, and they were like, we didn't even know Wheeling had a dog park. And we're like, we've got 3 of them. So it's kind of just, it's not only educational for them to kind of get out of that campus realm, but it's really helpful to just expand that network and, see them light up about their community that they're now a part of through this volunteer work. We also had some custom shirts and pins made this past year, shirts for some of like the bigger projects where we really needed visibility. But then I had some little pins made, which were a great help when we had a lot of volunteers. Everyone could take a little pin and at the end, pop it off, hand it back over to me. And it's a very easy way, it just says volunteer wheeling, that we can reuse them over and over again and being a low cost as well. Some other types of community events that we do, we have a show of hands, which is a crowd-funded pitch contest for local small businesses to gain visibility and make a little cash. When I say make, I mean win. So having people help at the door, helping with traffic flow, helping count votes, things like that. You can really have all levels of ability, especially when it comes to some of these community run events. A lot of the other stuff, I feel like you have to be pretty able-bodied, but this is where we really can tap into some of our more elderly volunteers that want to help, but they really can't dig down in the dirt. So I really love working with individuals and groups for all types of community involvement. So the way that we make it work, as you saw in those four kind of groups, we have clear team leads and they have designated responsibilities. We do meet with the whole group quarterly, and then I meet with them one-on-one about every 8 to 12 weeks, just to kind of keep in the loop, stay on track, and kind of see what we have coming up moving forward. We do have regularly scheduled events that are on our Volunteer Wheeling website, or it's on Wheeling Heritage website, but under the Volunteer Wheeling page. And that has helped a lot just with making sure people can check that at their own convenience, and then letting people know that through things like our newsletter and our social media pages. We do use Doodle. If no one uses Doodle or if you've never heard of it, it is a free tool online for helping with scheduling. So if you're like, okay, we could do this day at this time, or this day at this time, or this day at these 3 times, instead of just asking feedback to receive and then you try to figure it all out. Okay, well, he said this day and she said this day. Doodle is a really great way to kind of see that all in one place, and it actually will highlight, what the highest point is and like which day works best for most people. And that's been really helpful when we're kind of scheduling some of these types of things. The partner collaborations, like I said, with people like Friends of Wheeling, with the Ohio County Solid Waste Authority, with local universities. I really hope to kind of even go a little bit further this year with our private and public school districts to try to get some even younger people involved with some projects. And then the last one there, social media and the calendar updates. Social media is a beast in itself, but used the right way, I think it really is a really helpful tool. And we try to tag other organizations when we can. And I think I have the next slide coming up here, maybe talk a little bit more about that. I don't want to get too ahead of myself there. Yes. Okay. So social media, making sure that before the event, we're promoting it with nice graphics and the details and the needs. So right here, you see that's kind of what we put out on social media. It said, the title, what we were doing, when we were doing it, the time, the location, and then of course at the bottom, the contact information. We do like to tag other organizational partners because anyone who is, knowledgeable of social media, that's kind of getting your name out there even more. So if you tag someone and they're able to share it, or it goes on their feed, then you're going to see it in 2 places rather than just in one, which is, even better. After the event, we love to share photos and results. I know that that is huge. People love to see people helping people, and they love to see results. So like a side by side, this was the property before we started. This was the property after. Like, OMG, that was one of our most blown up posts of this entire quarter. Tagging the volunteers, whether they're individuals or if they're from an organization, and celebrating the impact with the team that you're working with, but also with their organization. So whether that be something small like, hey, let's get lunch next week, we deserve it, or something even a little bit bigger where we might have like a night where we all come together for a little dinner and it's all of the organizations, whatever works best for how you kind of structure things, and just keeping the energy high. Everyone in the chat was talking about positivity and the warmth and resilience and all those types of things. I think that that's huge with just being encouraging to one another, because sometimes volunteer work isn't always pretty, but it sure does make you feel good at the end of it. The reason it works, building visibility, it recognizes the efforts of yourself, your team members, and the group, and inspires others to get involved. Like I said, with the Artisan Center Green Team, we have other blocks further up the street that are starting to do a little bit more with their planters, because they said they saw us doing it. And that's what it all starts, right? So main takeaways, keeping it organized, try to get into the rhythm of things and setting up those people who are really gonna help you out. I think I struggle with that a lot because I like to be the person doing the things. And sometimes it's hard for me to kind of relinquish a little bit of control, but I'm learning that a lot in this position that it is well needed. Keeping things simple, so using things like Google Forms, sharing calendars, and just email. And like I said, a casual texting thread or a group text sometimes is really all you need. It doesn't have to be fancy. Make sure that everyone feels appreciated, that they feel welcome, easy to plug in at any time. We have a pocket park cleanup coming up this Sunday, and I have it structured 2 to 6. And I said, you can come anytime. If 2 o'clock doesn't work for you, come at 3, come at 4:30. We're going to be there 2 to 6, and we'd love to have your help during any bit of that time. Which I know that's not always doable because some projects, you might not have 4 hours of leisure, but it's nice to give people the option. Collaborating, not reinventing the same types of things going on, but partnering with organizations. So, like I said, Oxwa was already doing litter pickups, and we said, hey, we're going to do litter pickups. Let's do them together. What date are you doing it? Okay, we'll come tag on with you. Here's a date we're doing it, and they're coming on with us. And sharing the credit for that too is huge because no one likes to see somebody trying to take credit for something that they didn't do all by themselves. And then just keep showing up. Sometimes we do an organizational cleanup and we only have 3 people there. Sometimes we do it and we have 12 people there. So as long as you keep consistency, and just know that different people have different schedules, and as much as you plan, sometimes it doesn't work out the way you want it to, but that's okay. You just got to keep going, and hopefully people will tag on and join you. And I think that's the end there. I just want to say thank you so much for everybody who's out there listening today. I really appreciate your time. I know Dana does too in Volunteer West Virginia. Can't wait to hear from Jenny here in a minute. If anybody has any questions, I did put my email on there. Feel free to send me something directly. Or I don't know if you have any time in the middle here, Dana. Probably have a couple minutes if anybody needs something answered right now. I'm happy to do that.
Thanks, Riley. If you all have any questions just for a minute or two that Riley can answer, you can put it in the chat box because she's going to have to step out early. But in the meantime, I wanted to tell you, Riley, I loved your presentation. Some of my biggest takeaways were that I think it's amazing you can do it without a budget. So without a budget, they made it happen, and they have 4 separate volunteer teams. I also loved how it was a transferable model. So you could have a volunteer New Martinsville, a volunteer Children's Home Society of West Virginia. You can put volunteer in front of anything and kind of make it a wider community effort, which I thought was really cool. And you made it all happen by having 4 volunteers be the team lead for those separate groups. So I thought that was really special. And you made a great point when you said people always wanted to help you, but you didn't have a great way to organize it so people can really sink their teeth into what they want to do. So I think this is a really clear model of how you can do that, and it could be transferable to any community in West Virginia. And
Thank
then
you so much.
lastly, yeah, I love that you said before and after pictures were like the favorite.
They are. People are just like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that's the same place or that's the same. It's like, I know. Okay, so I see a little thing here, a chat. How do you get community partners engaged in your projects? So the first thing I did was I looked at what we were trying to accomplish, and then I brainstormed with our team, our 3 other committee leads, like, okay, who are the people that would that would fall under their wheelhouse? And once we came up with that list, I just started with simple emails or phone calls saying, hey, this is something we're trying to do. Don't know if you have any bandwidth to help us out with it, or if maybe you would know of somebody who would be able to help us. And people who do volunteering want to help people who are doing volunteering. I think that that's kind of as simple as it is, especially if they have the time or the capacity to do that. So that's kind of how we did it. Just email or phone call and said, hey, can we set up a time to have a little meeting and talk about what we're doing here in our beautiful city? I see another one here. Sometimes volunteers could move and database contact information could show useless. How do you maintain constant update of their information? That's a really great question. Because when I got brought on, we had about 120 people in our database, but some of them had signed up back in 2022, 2023. So the first thing I did was I looked at all of those emails. I sent a blast email introducing myself, saying what we were going to be doing with volunteer wheeling and the restructuring. And then I simply just asked them, if you no longer live in the area or you no longer wish to receive information from volunteer wheeling, please let me know. Otherwise, you'll be staying on the email. And I did have some people said like, oh, thanks so much for reaching out. Moved to Columbus, or we're in Tampa now, or whatever. I didn't hear back from everybody. So for now, people probably are still receiving them who wish they weren't, but they can let me know anytime. So that's kind of the way I'm doing it. I know that our organization does use some other software for like our bigger email groups, because we have about, I think, 1,800 people in our database for Wheeling Heritage. I could always ask like what they kind of use to keep that up to date. I'm not for sure on that because I'm not in the development communication side of things. But I could certainly find out. If you want to shoot me an email, I can ask. I think those were the two on there for now. So thank you guys again so much. This was great sharing with you. And I can't wait to watch the recording of this so I can hear what you had to share, Jenny.
Hey, Riley, thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Bye. All right, so we just were lucky enough to hear from Riley. She's been in the job for a year, and you can look how much enthusiasm and passion she's shared with her organization. And now we're going to hear from Jenny Keener. She's been with Heart and Hand Outreach Ministries for many years, and she's going to tell you what she's learned as a volunteer coordinator there. And Jenny is like my go-to volunteer superstar, so she's going to have some really awesome things to share with you. So welcome, Jenny.
Hello, everyone. It's so good to see everyone on the chat and to hear what everyone is doing. I have some exciting things to share with you today, and I actually just picked 3 topics that have helped me the most as a volunteer coordinator for the past 8.5 years at Heart and Hand.
Yeah, I was trying to remember how long you've been there, because Riley's just been there a year, and then Jenny's been there 8 years. So that's a long time as a volunteer coordinator. So there you go. I'm going to pass it along to you, Jenny.
You can pass it on. One more slide, Dana. Radical welcome is one of my favorite things to share, and something that really took a long time for me to develop at Heart and Hand. And what radical welcome means in volunteering is greeting each person with genuine warmth, valuing their time and presence, and focusing on the unique strengths they bring rather than the skills that they lack. So every volunteer feels they truly belong and can make a meaningful impact. So in my 8 years at Heart and Hand, I've worked with volunteers from all walks of life: retirees, teens, professionals on their lunch break, AmeriCorps members, felons, refugees, folks in recovery, and even families volunteering together. And each of those people come with different strengths, skills, and comfort levels. So I learned that it is my job as a volunteer manager to focus on what they can do and not what they can't. And I've seen a lot of volunteers bloom when we let them shine in their strengths. Maybe someone can't lift heavy boxes, but they can greet donors warmly. Maybe they use a wheelchair, so we created an accessible community garden with raised beds and clear pathways. Maybe a person who struggles with public speaking or is mobility challenged can create stunning thank you cards, or help with mailings, or help to fill out our online presence. So it's really about shifting the lens from limitations to opportunities. And you have to remember, when you do this, perfection is not your goal. You're not aiming for a flawless process. You're aiming for an engaged process. So in my work, especially in rural communities and during crisis responses, that engagement builds lasting, long relationships that keep volunteers coming back, and it builds trust. And that's really where real change starts to happen. So what I also like to do is do a training with my staff to let them know who's going to be coming, so that they can be prepared to respond with empathy, flexibility, and positivity. So you're not just really thinking about filling your volunteer shifts. You're thinking about creating an environment where every single volunteer feels they belong and that their contributions matter. There's a couple of QR codes on this slide, and I'm sure Dana will share these with you. But one is by the ARC, and it talks about inclusive volunteering, and you guys will really enjoy that. And then the other is a QR code that talks about how to create inclusive opportunities. And it's really about honing your volunteer descriptions to already have built in opportunities for people who have disabilities. So the next thing is the staff training for the Radical Welcome. And we really want to train staff to focus on what each volunteer can do and not what they can't. We want to reinforce with them that doing your best is enough. And this can be really hard. We have some older ladies that have volunteered at Heart and Hand for 25 years, and they are absolutely amazing. But sometimes they don't really understand that a volunteer coming in may not be able to work to the level that they're working. So we have a young lady who comes in, and before she volunteered at Heart and Hand, she had been in her home for 3 years. So she's trying to come out and have new experiences. And the first time she was here, she was only able to volunteer for 10 minutes. So had we not provided a little bit of training for them to help them understand that, you know, they need to meet people where they are and that she's doing her best, they might have responded completely differently. But now the young lady feels warm and welcome here. And the ladies who are downstairs love working with her. And now she's able to do an entire volunteer shift. So that's really a success. Make sure that you include scenario-based training and role-playing exercises so they know what exact language to use and so that they're prepared for anything that's coming up. Another best practice that has really helped me is doing a short staff survey for better relationships. Strong relationships between staff and volunteers don't just happen. They're built intentionally, and the best way to build them is by asking questions, listening, and responding. So over the years in my work, both in the field with AmeriCorps and at Heart and Hand, I've learned that people want to feel heard. Whether it's a family in crisis, a coworker or volunteer in our food pantry, the feeling is the same. Does my voice matter here? That's why a short, simple, anonymous survey can be so powerful. By asking staff how supported they feel when working with volunteers, everyone is able to learn where the gaps are. We want to ask what could improve communications, and then we open the door for solutions. By asking what they appreciate about volunteers, you're going to encourage that gratitude and recognition. And by asking what tools or training they need, we're going to show that we're invested in their success. I've been part of so many teams, and sometimes the challenges just boil down to miscommunications or assumptions. Sometimes just putting things on the table can transform how a team works together. So the surveys aren't really about criticism, they're about connection. And when staff and volunteers feel connected and respected, the work that we're able to do for our community becomes stronger, smoother, and more joyful for everyone involved. So this is just a little icon that I made for you guys. I do have descriptions for volunteers on our website. It's www.hhomwv.org. But I also made icon volunteer lists for people who come in who have disabilities. And so they're able to see what activities they can participate in on a daily basis in a way that is non-confrontational. I learned very quickly that one of the most important things we can do is those clear and concise volunteer descriptions. And without them, even the most enthusiastic helper can feel uncertain. And that uncertainty leads to frustration for volunteers and for staff. We had a volunteer named Sam, and he had a visual impairment and autism, and he was very nervous about what tasks he could take on. In the past, he'd been turned away from volunteer opportunities because people focused on what he couldn't do. But when he came to us, we started with a conversation not about his limitations, but about his strengths. And we learned that Sam was fantastic with people. He had a great memory for names. He learned to spell all of our names, and that is what helped him to remember all of them. He knew all of our customer names by the end. He really enjoyed making others feel welcome. And he said that that was important to him because so many places where he goes, he does not feel welcome. And I just thought that really got to me. And he was such a treasured volunteer here, and he was actually able to find employment. And I really love and appreciate his spirit and the lessons that he taught me. So instead of putting him in a role that would rely on reading labels or sorting items, we put him right in the front to greet people that were coming in the door. Or he would take donations in our rear drop off area, and he truly thrived in that role. And everyone remembers him for his warmth. Our thrift store shoppers and our clients still come into this day and ask us where they can find Sam because they really liked him. So this is why clear descriptions matter. When we spelled out to him what exactly the task involved step by step, it made it easier for us, but it also made it easier for the volunteer to see if it was a good fit. And when we save specific roles for individuals with disabilities that aligns with their strengths, we're not making accommodations in a pitying way. We're creating a team that values everyone's contributions. And I'm going to say that one more time. When we save specific roles for individuals with disabilities that align with their strengths, we're not making accommodations in a pitying way. We're creating a team that values everyone's contributions. I've worked with so many volunteers who have had physical, developmental, or mental health challenges, and time again, they will show you that when you put someone in the right role, one that plays to their talents, they don't just do the job, they excel at it. And often they bring a level of dedication and creativity that will inspire your entire team. Because the truth is, inclusion isn't just about access, it's about intention. And by writing thoughtful, clear volunteer descriptions and assigning roles that match strengths, we're going to give everyone the opportunity not only to participate, but to shine. And when everyone is working in the place where they feel confident and valued, our whole organization is going to be stronger for it. Thank you so much for letting me present. I really appreciate being able to share the successes that I've had at Heart and Hand, and they have come on the back of a million failures. So it's always a work in progress, but I want everyone in the world to be able to shine and have a wonderful and amazing volunteer experience. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jenny. That was beautiful. I love the way you put it and that you make everyone feel welcome, and what really stood out to me is how much time and energy you put into training your staff. Because I think a lot of the times we think about training our volunteers, but you don't think about that other half. And it seems like that's really made a big difference at Heart and Hand, and to make sure you can make everyone feel welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. being able to train staff, because a lot of people have never worked with someone with a disability before. So it's better to do the training than to regret it later on.
Yeah, yeah. You have a lot of really nice messages in the chat too, Jenny, and I loved hearing the story about Sam. That really touched my heart.
He's amazing.
So does anyone have a specific question for Jenny that you'd like to ask her? I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions, and then I'll give you all the opportunity to share a tip if there's something you want to share with the group. So I'll just give you a second to think. Jenny, I like how you mentioned how you had so many failures. I never thought about that. You have successes and failures, so that could be a whole separate webinar.
Yes.
Failures. Because you have to learn things.
I mess up all the time, and then you just have to pick up and learn from it and shine again tomorrow, you know?
Yeah, you really do shine. I can tell you love what you do. You have a really special knack for it. All right, so if anyone doesn't have questions for Jenny, she can hang out for a minute. Now we're going to move to a group. Oh, here we go. I'm going back to a question, then we'll move forward. So Jenny, Melissa asked, how do you do an anonymous survey? Do you do a survey with your staff anonymously?
Yes, I honestly just print them out and pass them out at a staff meeting, and then collect them at the end. And I try to do surveys where you only have to fill in bubbles and not actually write, because I want to get like honest information. But also I know how people write at Heart and Hand because we have a small staff. Another solution is to just use SurveyMonkey, and provide a link for everyone to fill in on their phones or a QR code, and they can just scan it, do the SurveyMonkey, and they're able to provide more information and typed text.
Thanks, Jenny. That's a great answer. So let's see, we've already had some tips coming in. I'm going to read it out and then I'll see if anyone wants to unmute. But Nancy had a great tip. Always thank your volunteers and recognize their service. And we can't agree with you more. Whether you're having a picnic at the park or having an award ceremony, that's a big part of it, is making people feel valued and appreciated, because it's hard to be a volunteer sometimes. Does anyone else have a tip you'd like to share? You can unmute or put it in the chat. I'll give you a second to think about it. Thanks, Nancy. And she said, get to know your volunteers personally. So that's so true. People call us all the time asking how to find volunteers. And I always say, volunteers are people. It's like you're making a new friend. So they're not like a captive audience. You just can't ship 10 volunteers in. You really have to meet each one of them and get to know, like what Jenny said, what they want to contribute and what they're good at. And it takes time to build that relationship, but that's how you get volunteers to stick around. Thanks, Nancy. Any other tips you want to share in the chat box, or maybe even a challenge you'd like to ask the group while we have some time together? Oh, I love it. Karen. Hey, Karen.
Yes, just give people the opportunity. I run the East End Resource Center. Hey y'all. The East End Resource Center, and we work with senior citizens, and they feel so valued when they volunteer and do something. So we want to celebrate their talents and what they're doing so that they feel valued and feel like they still have purpose in life.
Love that. Thanks, Karen. You do a great job over there. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, Erin shared a great tip. Erin shared, we just started asking volunteers via a survey to share their superpower. I love that. We just started doing that at Volunteer West Virginia with us. Areas of knowledge, skills, etc., that might be useful for the organization. We also asked them which roles within the organization they are interested in. So I love that. I started to realize too with our board of directors that each person has a superpower and each person would like to contribute one thing. So that's what we're starting to ask our board members, is what they would like their superpower to be. Here we call it a shooting star. So your shooting star is your legacy. So what is one thing as a board member that you'd like to contribute to Volunteer West Virginia? We're starting that, and I'm going to ask them next week at a board meeting. So I know boards can be hard to work with. They're volunteers as well. But if you ask your board members or your volunteers what their shooting star or their superpower is, then you'll find out one thing they want to help with. And you might be surprised. I've heard stories about volunteers. For an example, someone was a landscape architect and they thought that volunteer would want to come to their shelter and add the plants and decorate the front of the building. And the volunteer was like, no, I've had enough of landscape architecture. I don't want to play with plants at all. I want to talk to people and cook in the kitchen. So sometimes, like what Jenny said, you have to not have assumptions and see what your volunteers want to give, because it's not going to always be what you think. So sometimes people need a break from what they're doing, or they want to build on what they do as a career. So just a great way to put it. And if everyone can contribute one thing, then it's going to build that really beautiful team that Jenny talked about earlier. So thank you, Erin, for that tip. So let's see, just one more minute. Does anyone else want to share a little tip or a simple trick that's helped their program? All right, well, I think we have the perfect amount of ideas. I really loved how today's webinar turned out. I'm going to put this link in the chat box if you'd like to fill out a feedback survey. We'd love to hear what you'd like to say. And it's important this time of year because we're going to put the schedule together for next year's webinar training. So if you have a topic that you would like us to provide training on, put it in that survey. So I want to say thank you again to our beautiful, wonderful presenters today, Jenny and Riley. And it was so good to see so many volunteer professionals throughout the state. And we appreciate you, and we'll see you all next month. Bye. Bye, Sharon. Good to see you. See you all soon. Hey, Sharon, I see your face.
Hi, good to see you too. It's been a while. Been
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, it's
Hope
great.
you're
It
well.
was a great webinar. Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, Sharon, I hope to see you soon.
Absolutely.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. See you next month.